What's up, meatbags? It's the Alpha Imitated, Never Duplicated Tony, EGG. Today we're going to be reviewing Knights of the Cross. Now this game was released on Thursday, July 20th for Windows via Steam platform. That was published by Neverland Entertainment, developed by Olive Panda Studio, and it will run you $15.99. However, I received a review copy of the game, and I'm here to give you my thoughts on it. Now, the game is described as a story-driven deck-building RPG set in the history of the Knights of the Cross. Now, the word that I've been avoiding, the Krzyżacy word, that is the name of a book in which the game is based on. Quick history lesson here, but the book in question is a Polish 1900s historical novel. It was written by a Nobel laureate. In the original book, we have the hero, Zabisco. He's falling in love with the Nucia. And through some happenstance, she gets captured by some Teutonic knights. There's a lot of fighting, a lot of, knight activity. And unfortunately, she dies in captivity. But we get the Polish-Lithuanian alliance to fight off the Teutonic Order, culminating in the Battle of Grunwald. Now that is the book. The game follows this pretty closely, but it throws a few curveballs in there. It's not an exact one-to-one adaptation of the book. No, it throws in some curveballs. One of those curveballs includes having a anime inspired aesthetic. That's right, it is a game about a Polish-Lithuanian alliance to fight off the Teutonic Knights, and it is done with an anime style. Now, if you're not good with that, if you don't like that, if it's a little off-putting for you, they do have a free Western art style pack that you can download to give yourself a different sort of aesthetic for the character portraits. Personally, I think the anime character portraits are a lot better. They have a lot more personality to them, a lot more dynamic. The Western style ones are pretty dull, pretty boring, if you ask me. With that said, the game, like I said, follows the book pretty closely. You play Zabisco, you meet the Nucia, you fall in love, and you vow to get revenge on the man who has caused her family much strife, a man by the name of Kuno von Liechtenstein. So you go off, you fight some battles, win some wars, lots of interesting things. However, there are a few twists and turns along the way. They add a second love interest. Personally, I think the second love interest feels kind of forced. It doesn't seem to fit. There's not a lot of introduction to her. She just kind of shows up out of nowhere, and you're just supposed to, I guess, abandon your original goal and go with this second chick, because you can. There is a choice between the two. But like I said, it feels forced. It doesn't feel natural to the story that is being told up until that point. And unlike the original story, your love interest does not die in captivity. No, we get the happy ending here. This is the alternate reality happy ending. Spoiler alert. With that said, the game. How does it play? How does this game play? Well, like I said, it is a story-driven deck-building RPG. So let's break down now. The RPG mechanics, you level up the characters in your party by winning battles and getting experience points. The battles are fought using cards that you collect during your adventure. You could buy them, you could win them as rewards, you can get them from other members of your party. The members of your party usually include mercenaries that you hire along your journey. However, there are a few instances where story characters are put into your party, and you can either use them or not. You don't have to. You're not forced to use them, but they're available to you. Now, you play the different cards. You have cards based on attacks, cards based on magic, support cards, and prop cards. Each has a color. You have red attack, blue magic, green support, and yellow prop cards. Now, this is important because your teammates, they do not attack on their own. No, they just sit around idly until you unlock their attacks by playing card combinations. Now, your teammates might need one red card, or two red cards and a blue, one blue and three green. Various combinations depending on the teammate. Each one has 3 attacks, one that costs 1 that costs 3, and one that costs 5. That would be the full-powered ultimate attack ability from your teammate. Now this is where the game sort of breaks down, because as fun as it is to use this to try to figure out combinations, early on it is real difficult to get that 5 combo made, as you only draw 5 cards and you can only play 5 points worth cards. That's right, each card has a point value from 0 to 2. It's real hard to fill up those meters, especially when the teammates have differing requirements. And so if you have a teammate that needs 1 red and you have a teammate that needs 1 blue, well, obviously you might not get a chance to play either or. So you're going to have teammates that are idling simply because you either don't have the cards in your hand or you don't even have the cards in your deck. And you're not allowed to hold on to cards. You can only keep 2 cards per turn to take over to the next turn. So this requires lots of strategy. Or, alternatively, you can just make sure that you have a full team that uses the exact same setup. Myself, personally, I went for a full magic attack team. That way, every time I played a magic card, I knew that my teammates were going to attack. And quite often, they were all hitting out their ultimate attack every single round. You can also do this with attack cards. However, support and the prop ones, they do not have the same sort of effect because they don't have characters that have full prop or support, which is probably a good thing because those cards are not going to attack the enemies anyway. On top of the cards that you use to battle, you can also unlock relics that have various effects. Now, when I played the game, you only had a certain amount of relics available and you had to choose to give up one that you own in order to get a new one. That has since been patched where you can now have a bag of relics and you can choose which ones you want to use during the battles. These can allow you to do things like get extra attacks, extra cards, cause damage to your enemies, get stronger, get better status effects, put status effects on your opponents. The relics really do sort of change the dynamic of battle in lots of interesting ways. However, often the boss fights that you end up in have special rules that sort of work against anything you're going through. One example is there's a boss fight in which you can't use any magic attacks for 1 round, you can't use any attack cards in another round, you can't use any support cards in the 3rd round, and it keeps rotating. This really limits what you're able to do, and if you're focused on one particular set of cards, whether attack or magic, it's going to mean basically 1 whole round you do nothing. Another boss fight limited you to 8 cards per round. Now this seems like a lot. Well, you say, Tony, you already have 5 cards and you usually only have 5 points. True, but with relics and with careful strategy and with certain cards that allow you to draw more cards, it was real easy for me to have rounds in which I was drawing 6, 7 cards, already having cards in my hand, and just firing off whole decks full of attacks. But like I said, but the boss fight rules basically hampered that. So I don't appreciate that. I don't like when boss fights have special rules. Basically like, hey, we know that you're probably really good at the game at this point, so we're going to limit your ability to do things to try to make it even for the computer to win. Early on in the game, the money you get is very, very little. Now you'll be getting like 20 gold coins for winning a fight. It costs from 100 to 200 gold coins to recruit a mercenary. The cards are very expensive in the card shop. The relics are very expensive. There is a mysterious stranger who can reduce the amount of cards you have in your hand. And I know this sounds bad. However, the more cards you have in your hand, rather not your hand, your deck, the more things you can draw. However, if you have less cards in your deck, if your minimum deck is less, that means you're going to be shuffling through the cards, and you can set your deck so that way basically you're picking everything you need every single turn. But again, everything is very, very expensive and you don't get a lot of money, at least not at the beginning of the game. Now, by the end, you'll probably have more money than you need. You probably won't be buying things because they'll be unnecessary. You'll have the mercenaries you want. But like I said, in the early goings, it's a little tough. It's a steep hill to climb, but once you get up there, it's smooth sailing. Now, the story is pretty bare, right? What I've told you is pretty much everything that happens. There's small cutscenes between battles and the main story. Usually 3 or 4 lines of dialogue. but there's not really much deep story into it, because again, it is following what is in the book, and it's kind of stretching out what the book was, and it's pretty thin already. So you're not going to get much. You're not going to get these deep, long 20-minute cutscenes. You're not going to get lots of talking. It's not going to be lots and lots of lore. The mercenaries you hire, they're not story characters, so they're not going to feature into any of the story missions. They're not going to feature into any of the story cutscenes. It doesn't matter which ones you pick. The story moves ahead all on its own. There are a few instances where you can choose different things in the story, and they will either help you progress or hinder it, improve your relationship with characters or not. Now you can do side quest and mercenary quest on top of your main quest. However, if you do a main quest that moves the story forward, and any side quest and any mercenary quests that are available, they're gone, they're out of the picture. So if you're going to do those content, you gotta do them before the main story. Unfortunately, some of these side quests have choices in which basically like, hey, you can continue this side quest chain, or you can end it prematurely, and there's no point in ending it prematurely. I don't even know why that's an option, because there is no benefit to ending a side mission quest chain prematurely. Same thing with the mercenary teammates. You know, ending their chains early has no benefit. If you get to the full chain of a mercenary that's under your employ, you get a bonus at the end. It might be a good card, it might be a relic. So you really definitely want to do those missions. But outside of that, the actual mercenaries, they have very little personality. You get a little bit of story, a little bit of personality in their personal missions, but not much. It's the same sort of, 3 or 4 lines in a little mini cutscene, and that's about it. The game is not that long. You can plow ahead. If you play it on easy, you could probably knock this thing out in about 6 hours. If you play it on normal, you might take about 10 hours. If you're doing all the missions, all the side quests and all that, it might take you 12 to 15, depends on how slow you read. Now, there is a lot of RNG when hiring mercenaries, because there's only 3 available at once. So if you're looking for particular ones, it's going to cost you something to reset. You got to rely on that RNG to get the ones you want. So again, that could be frustrating when you're trying to put together a team of, say, all attackers or all magic users. The music is fantastic. It's great. It never gets old. I love the pixel art. I love the way the game looks. Like I said, the anime aesthetic of the characters are very good. I wish they had more personality, though, in the actual game. There is some lore bits in the gallery section. When you hire a mercenary character or you meet one of the NPCs, there is some information in the gallery section that you can learn a little bit more about them. Things that they don't actually tell you in the game, which I wish they would. Because, again, I was finding myself using mercenaries based on their card requirements and not so much on their personalities or their look or any sort of connection to them and story-wise. There was an issue with the bad guys. They just kind of seem to come out of nowhere, right? We know that the Teutonic Knights are the bad guys. Kuno is positioned as he's going to be the main bad, the big bad. It seems like that's where they're going. And then you beat him, and there's still more story to go. And then these new bad guys just kind of show up. There's no real explanation. If you're not familiar with the Teutonic Knights, you're not familiar with the Knights of the Cross book or the movie adaptation, if you know nothing about this and you're just playing the game, these characters are you're like, who are they? Who are these characters? Why am I fighting them? Why is this guy now the leader of the Teutonic Knights? Why is this guy showing up? Some of the bosses have names, and those characters never actually appear anywhere outside of the boss fight. You have no idea who they are, why they're there. So it kind of leads to it just going through the motions type thing, right? Like, you're playing the game, you're trying to beat it, you're trying to get to the end. You just kind of go through the motion, beat the boss that you have no connection to and you don't really care about. And that's probably the worst criticism of the game, right? It does feel a lot like you're just going through the motions. It is fun, the gameplay is good, but it does feel like going through the motion. The story is not really engaging, not engrossing. I was not motivated by trying to find out more of what's happening. I was more motivated just to get to the end, because hey, like I said, it is actually a pretty fun system when you get it all working, you get all the bells and whistles hitting just right. You know, the game could use just a little bit more polish. There is a challenge mode where you can try to just fight battle after battle, unlocking cards and mercenaries as you go along. There is a big pool, about 38 different mercenary characters to hire throughout your adventure. There's some achievements, there's lots of things to do. But again, the story being so thin, it just feels like you're going through the motions. All in all, if you like what you see on the screen, if you are interested at all in the gameplay or what I've talked about, then yeah, I would recommend picking this one up. It is worth it. You know, $15.99. It's right there on the line as what I would say between too much and just the right price. But if you're not interested in this kind of game, if you're not interested in mechanics, skip it. It's not going to change your mind. It's not going to win you over. There's not much else to see outside of what you're seeing now and what I talked about. But again, until next time, love, peace, booty grease. I'm out this bitch.